The sun getting low, big guy. Hi, I'm Rob. I'll make you better. That's what I do. So, you're dyslexic, right? And you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there who have that stuff going on. Uh, and you probably sought help. Your parents dragged you to every, pedagogue or method out there in the world, and it didn't work. I mean, I met parents who's been, I was, how long has he been trying to seek help? Oh, 5 years. How old is your kid? Like 12. And it doesn't work. No, so why are you here? And I asked parents because they come to one day, class like this when I was teaching this stuff back in the day. And they told me, well, you have to try everything. Parents want to help the kids, but the problem for dyslexic is that the people in the field of dyslexia doesn't know what they're doing. They can diagnose you. And this is the reason why there are 6 different theories of dyslexia, because every dyslexic I work with were different. They had a different form of dyslexia. They have a different form of dyslexia. Different. So obviously people come up with a lot of different theories. But here's the thing I want to tell you. One way we teach things here is the way people read. In every country of the world, everybody reads the same. In China, in Australia, South America, Spain, UK, Sweden, any country in the world, everybody reads the same way. That means there is an underlying skill that people learn. When you learn to ride a bike, for example, your parents probably going to tell you something like, keep your balance, which is nice, but keeping the balance is not enough of instruction. If I would have a kid like that, I would say, hey, you're going to lose your balance, right? And when you lose your balance, you want to overcompensate. You want to do it too much. That means you're going to fall over. That's what happens. Because once you master how to ride a bike, you kind of keeping the small balance. It becomes automatic. You don't even think about it. You can do it anymore. It's just easy and natural. Riding a bike. And you go, but you kind of forget how you actually struggle to learn it. And you're not alone. I mean, there is, the royal family here in Sweden, for example, Victoria and her brother, they are dyslexic. They are famous. They probably have a lot of money, and they still can't get help because the methods used in the field of dyslexia doesn't work so well. So you kind of fucked. You just say it the way it goes. When you meet parents and they look at the kid, how long have you been trying this shit? Oh, too long. You have someone like an actress like Keira Knightley, Pirates of the Caribbean, other stuff, Bender like Beckham. She is also dyslexic. But maybe Tom Cruise, also available with dyslexia, right? So if Tom Cruise, who has, movie star, all that stuff, have a lot of money, probably trying to figure out how to, fix this, but he couldn't. Because he still hasn't, found this YouTube site. What can I say? We have winter conditions here. We have a little bit of a cold. We have like 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, below Celsius. And the sun is getting low. And winter has arrived. Snow and all that stuff. So, why haven't people heard about this? Well, because if you work in any field, at some point they're going to tell you stuff like, well, you have to understand dyslexia is for life. No, it's not. One of my students applied this technology that I developed for a kid. She was like 14 at the time or something like that, 15, whatever. She had been to Danvers Hospital. She got a diagnosis of dyslexia with them, right? And then she was out there seeking help. She found my student. He applied my technology for her. Boom, not dyslexic anymore. All right? Okay, that's hearsay. What she did was really, really cool. She went back to Danvers Hospital and did another test for dyslexia. You know what they told her? The testing lady after a while said, why are you here? You're not dyslexic. And she told them, yes, I am. According to you, I did the test before. I was dyslexic. Then I went to this guy. He applied what he was teaching and doing, and now I'm not dyslexic anymore. Now, the lady never reached out. I sent a message to royal family here in Sweden, well, a long time ago now, and Victoria didn't, pick this up. So everybody reads the same way. It's a skill. What's a skill? Well, how you encode the word, how you retrieve the word, and then how you verify the word is correct. And it seemed kind of silly. I told people that, but I had one of those people who do research in this field that was laughing at it, because they couldn't understand it. And this is not something you need to understand. It's something you need to do. A few years back, this is over 50 years ago, I had this up in my old town where I was living, when I was a kid. It's a long way from here. When I was going up there to visit some relatives, and it was a client, so I was okay. So I went there, talked to the parents, and they told me, the daughter was, really difficulties, and had a speech problem. All right, and they called the daughter in, and when she saw me, she was like, "Oh man, not again." But I asked her, "How long is this been going on with the speech problem?" Since she was 4 years old, right? This is usually how it happens. So what I did with her was very simple and straightforward. I asked her, okay, fixing her reading difficult, not that didn't take long, and then I worked through her, speech problems. And I told her, so I started with the letter C, right? C, say C. And she didn't say C, she said shh, or something like that. I said, no, C. And I just did that back and forth, told her C, didn't tell her how to do it, I said C. When she got it right, I gave her feedback, that's correct. When she got it wrong, I said, no, C, C, C. And after a while, she got the word C. I have a friend of mine. How are you? Oh. I'm tired. Well, hard to hear what you said, but the temperature has dropped and snow has come. Yeah, I know. Yesterday we had minus 20 Celsius basically, and it was really cold outside. So when I was working with her, right, she said, see, now at some point in this conversation with her dad was in pain because he couldn't hear the difference, because he was tone deaf. And one of the reasons I think she had a speech problem was because her dad couldn't hear the differences. And it's very hard to give feedback if you can't hear the differences. So if you have a dyslexic kid, if you're a parent watching this, and you yourself have difficulty with dyslexia, maybe you should do this with your kid. Make sure you have one of the parents, or even reach out to a friend to do this with you. Because once you have the skill down, you can just do it. It's like riding a bike. At some point you can't do it, then you'll master the balance, and then you can do it. And then you kind of go around, what was the difficult with this? I had, and in the one-day workshop I did, when I asked, parents, wow, we have to try everything. Oh, cool, you're here then. Because this is going to change your kid's life. And I said, hey, what's your name, kid? And they told me their name, and I said, okay, I'm going to write a word on the whiteboard behind me. I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to tell you, can tell me what it is, and they could, because it was cat. And I said, I want you to spell it out loud. Okay, they spelled it out loud. All right. And I want to spell it backwards out loud. And I said, okay. And I already knew what was going on and started to fix it for them, right? And adjust it for them so the parents could do the rest of the work to clean it up. But here's the thing, what I also did. I took a longer word. I said to one kid, can you spell that? And they go, yeah. And they started to spell it. But here's the thing that people didn't know that I have to point it out. I said, it's correctly spelled up here. But when you try to spell it, you don't look at what's on the tip, because you have to go inside and verify it, because you have to check it against what your memory is. Because every skill you do is a memory function. People don't know that. Now, and the funny thing about that, if you learn to ride a bike, cool. But think about this. If someone gives you a bike, when the steering goes the other way, so when you're turning left, it actually goes right. Do you know what's going to happen? You're going to fall over again. It was actually a Dutch engineer that made a bike for him, and he couldn't ride the bike. Right? It's on YouTube somewhere. Very funny, you know. And it took him a whole year to learn to ride the bike that goes the wrong way. Now, he went to a tour over the world. He presented his bike and you know how it worked and all that stuff, and people understood it. And he said, "I'll give you $100 to anyone who can ride this bike from one end of the stage to the next other end of the stage. It's like 10 meters, something like that, without putting the foot down and losing the balance." And everybody understood how the bike was, and he was demonstrating how to ride the bike and all that stuff. And some people, you know, took it up on, you know, oh yeah, I can ride a bike. I understand how to do it. And everybody failed because it's a different skill. Once you have a skill down, you want your brain and your body is tuned to that context. And if you change the, you know, how this bike works with the steering, you can't do it anymore. For some people, when they drive, you know, on the right side of the road for the whole life, which is the way you're supposed to drive, when you go to another country like in the UK, where they drive on the wrong side of the road, the left side. I mean, if you talk about accident with cars, I think every country in the world should drive on the right side of the road so we can make it simple. But if you go there and you're gonna suddenly you're gonna have to, you know, put a gear in on with your left, or instead of you. It's going to take some adjustment to get it done. And the same thing works with, if you're dyslexic and you're going to learn the skill, it's going to take some time before you get it done. Because you have to repeat the information. You have to repeat the information. You have to give the proper feedback. But once you get the proper feedback down, you clear up the encoding, you establish a baseline word, you have verification working, the retrieval working, and you just go, oh, okay, that's how you do it. And it doesn't take long. A lot of people think it doesn't, well, no. Once you learn somewhere between 3 to 5 words with this, right? You establish a baseline word like cat. You start with the next word. Sometimes it's which, depending on which, I guess, which is weird. And then, at some point, when you're down 3 to 5 words, something happens because you start to learn to do it automatically. You know, like riding a bike or something like that. Now you can just, because for people who are able to read, they misspell words. And today we have word processors, right, writing on a computer nowadays. So that means that it comes up, right? And if you have a dyslexic do it, it's a lot of red, by the way, on the screen. And you don't know how to fix them. Everybody who can read knows how to fix them because he has to make an adjustment. When I'm Swedish, right? And when I was learning English, you guys put letters in the word that I think is just extra, but just for fun. Right? Why do you put the E in there because it's an I and then an E? And well, it's supposed to be spelled like that. And the grammar is supposed to work this way. But here's a funny way, you know, is that I have to learn to adjust that because that's how people read. And people who read, they don't have a problem with that. They just learn it. They just have it. And I also have a video here, you know, how to write straight. And it's very simple. If you look at someone in the classroom who's learning to write for hand, right? Usually you can't write straight because you're sitting up like that. You have this up, right up, your paper in front of you. What you actually have to do to write straight is to teach you, it's very simple, right? You only need to tilt your head and turn your paper and then you can write straight because then now you can see if you're writing straight or not. Teacher doesn't know this. Every teacher in every world, in every classroom, in any country, they don't know this. So they tell the students, okay, time to start writing straight. And I just go in the class and say, so you want your students to write straight? And they go, yeah. All right. And I just run the test. Everybody take a paper, take a pen, write a sentence like this, or write it up on the blackboard or something like a whiteboard, whatever they use nowadays. Okay, write that sentence down. And I would just look at the body language, and I would point out that student, that student, that student, that student. That problem writing straight, right? And the teacher go, how do you know that? Because they all did this. You just sit straight up and try to write straight. You can't do it. And I said, I will fix it in 5 seconds for all of them. Hey kids, you know, you who struggle, yeah, do it like this. Turn your head, turn the paper, and they will all write straight immediately. But if you don't know something like that, you can't help them. Now they're going to sit there and try to write straight for 5 months or 6 months or a whole year or whatever, right? You have to understand the people who are educated in the field, right? It doesn't matter if it's speech problems, are applying education they learn to do. It may not work. Like in this field of dyslexia, they diagnose people, but they don't know how people read. If you ask any professor or any expert in the field of dyslexia, ask them the question of how do you understand what you're reading? They don't know, and they may say, "Well, I'm dyslexic." Well, that's just an excuse. You can use what this guy, that's me by the way, has developed, and then you won't be dyslexic anymore. You know what they're going to tell? Oh, that's impossible. Did you know they told me that with everything I've been doing in my life? They told me, the golf swing is complicated and it must be a secret. No, it's just skills. So I have a 68-year-old, who hits 260 plus. That means he hits longer than 90% of amateurs do. He hits actually, on average, more than 20 yards longer than a 20-year-old. And it's almost 70. And people tell me that's impossible. And this guy, 68 years old, he was able to drive 320-yard par 4 for the first time in his life. 3 years ago, I had a guy who was at 240 yards with what, the educated teacher do in the golf. And he is at 350 yards. That's a 100-meter increase. And do you know what the people tell me who are expert in golf? Do you know what they tell me? That's impossible to teach. You can't teach someone to hit 100 meters longer. And I said, well, I did. So what are they going to do about it? What they're going to do about it, call it impossible. You can't do it. I bet they told Einstein that too. Well, it's impossible that light can bend around the sun. Come on, light can't bend. It's photons. It has no mass, technically. And Einstein said, well, it's how it works. And the professors and people in the field of astrophysics at the time when Einstein was alive, they didn't believe him. Even if the math checked out, they said that's impossible. Then they devised an experiment and showed that light do indeed bend around the sun. But no one believed that before Einstein did the work. And then today, 100 years later, people can build nuclear bombs if they have, access to explosive and nuclear material, which is very difficult to get hands on. Just ask, Sheldon in Big Bang Theory. He tried them when he was a kid. I think the FBI was involved. Kind of weird. That's Sheldon for you. Very funny guy. Sorry, kid at the time, but you know what I mean. So, knowledge at some point is unknown to them. No one in the world believed that sun kind of Lord at this point here in where I live was the one traveling on Earth. And then Galileo, one guy that he built a telescope, he could look out in space. When he looked out in space, he saw, hey, it doesn't work the way we assume it's supposed to do. And he told people about that. And at the time, everybody on the planet said he was wrong. And all he did was, well, look at my telescope and figure out, it actually works the way I say it works. And they told him, no, because everybody has been indoctrinated by the religion at the time, right? You're questioning absolute truth of God, they said. And I said, I don't think God made those rules. I think it was people who made the rules in someone else's name, And today, dyslexia is the same thing, They're going to tell you, well, you're not a professor. No, I'm not. I'm just a guy who I'm basically an inventor and, a scientist because I make observations. If you do observations and, can, confirm them, you're kind of a scientist. Because there's different ways to do science, if you didn't know. There's not just one way to do science. You can observe things. People did that for thousands of years. They observe, why does this individual get a lot of teeth problem? He's eating a lot of honey. We don't eat that lot of honey. Maybe there is a correlation. You have to stop eating honey. And this guy, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years ago, looked at them and said, no, I want to eat honey. Do you want to have pain in your teeth? No, stop eating honey. And they stopped eating honey, and it got better. That's correlation with observation and testing. That's science. And people were doing that 5, 10, 15,000 years ago. They're not alive, so we can ask them, but, it doesn't take a lot for people. People say, well, they were very primitive back then. Yeah. But here's the thing. You don't need to be primitive. You can have someone with education. They can have a professor title with tenure. It's popular in America, I believe. And they will be an expert on the field. And they can't do shit for you. That's the truth. They don't like it when I tell people that things like that. They just believe, well, you're educated, you're a recognized man because you wrote some books about it, but they still can only do diagnosis. They can't really help you. That's the sad truth here. And I'm trying to change that, obviously. This website, YouTube site, have videos on how to do this for free. You don't need to pay me. You just need to, have a parent do this video or a friend. And Tom Cruise, if you're watching this, apply it with a friend. Give me, the proper feedback, and at some point you will just won't be dyslexic anymore. Once that happens, that's the fun part of it, right? People don't understand that everything we do is a skill set within the context. And it's called contextual memory. I call it that because, you have to call it something, right? It's contextual memory. Every skill we have, riding a bike, driving a car, speak, talking alone requires you to coordinate 100 muscles, give or take, to be able to speak. I only have one vocal cord working. When I was a teenager, I have what people call cancer, and in my thyroid gland, and I had to remove that, right? And when they remove all that shit, a nerve was damaged. I could, one of my vocal cord was not working. So I have to adapt to that and learn to speak. I can't sing. And people say, we missed that bullet. But I have to adapt, and I have to learn to modulate my voice in different ways, even though I just have one vocal cord. And you would say, is it easy to speak? And people go, yeah, I think it's easy. No, it's not. Go look at the baby and talk to them. All you get is, basically, right? That's babies. They can't speak. It's not that easy. It takes them a year or two to get the hand of, trying to communicate what they want, right? It's not easy. But easy now when you learn to do it. It's like I had kids with dyslexia, worked with them, because all the years I identified two traits what's going on. You either are lucky in the way that you have everything you need to be able to read, but it's not organized properly. My method will clear that up. If parents do this video, you're going to get fast results, right? The other case is that when your function is not functioning properly, you have to build it and get it, make it more stronger, if you like, and more, working condition. And that's why you need a lot of repetition, because you have to build the memory function to be able to do the skill with the encoding. Taking the word cat is not the problem. You can spell cat, C-A-T-S-E, and you go, is that correct? Yes, is it correct? Okay, and it's correct, you get feedback. Oh. But then when you take the next word that you have encoded wrongly, and this is the fun thing about the brain. It doesn't matter, because the brain doesn't care about shit like that. If you do things wrong and you encoded the word wrong, they will always be wrong. If you encoded them correctly, they will always be correct. It's like riding a bike, right? Once you learn to ride a bike, you don't need to, practice that anymore. You can just do it for the rest of your life. And that's how the brain works. If you encode the words incorrectly, which will happen for dyslexics for various reasons, it will keep on producing that until you clean that up. and reorganize how the encoding works for that word. And there is no shortcuts there. You have to do it this way. You establish a baseline word with cat. You repeat that. You make sure it's working. You adjust the word. So it's supposed to be black letters. Condensed smaller. Letters be manageable. You have it in front of you. You color. You see it clearly. All that stuff, right? In your checklist. And then you just once you have that done, you take the next word and you're gonna and you have to do it the same way like cat, and you just the next word again, and 3 to 5 words. That's about it. Sometimes it takes more words, and to get in there, it can go fast or it can take longer, right? So yeah. Anyway, I'm done for today. If you're dyslexic, get a hold of a parent or a friend to help you do this with proper feedback. It will work. So, what else to say? Other than Avengers, assemble.